Hello, my name is Gavin Higgins. I'm a composer and I live in London. Speak of the North is a song cycle for soprano, piano, and violin that was commissioned by the singer Claire Booth. She had an idea of a new sort of contemporary song cycle that spoke to what it is to be northern or to come from the north or to live in the north. And she approached me about it, and I thought it was a great idea. I moved to Manchester when I was 16, and very quickly felt like I was a northerner. I no longer live in the north, but I have lots of sort of feelings about that part of the world, and it just felt like a really great project to get my teeth stuck into. So this piece is about 35 minutes long. It's quite a big song cycle, and it uses about 9 different poets and some folk songs. So there are 3 poems by all 3 Bronte sisters, which start the piece, and I guess these first 3 songs are very much kind of escapism, the idea of escaping to the north or returning to the north as a sort of a homeland. There is a poem by Michael Simmons Roberts called Great Northern Diver, which I use, in which it's as though you are descending on Manchester from the above and the ground is sort of rushing up to meet you. There are 2 poems by the Northumbrian poet Katrina Porteous about the coal mining landscape and Hadrian's Wall. There's a great poem I use by Zoe Mitchell, which is a sort of an argument between the Sycamore Gap tree and Hadrian's Wall. And there are also various other poems I use and Northumbrian folk songs sort of weaved in there. So the piece is quite a sort of sprawling journey across the north from Manchester through the Pennines up to Hadrian's Wall and sort of looking beyond. So sourcing poems for this song cycle was quite tricky. There were some issues with copyright, which meant some poems couldn't be used. Other poems I looked at sounded great when I read them, but the second I tried to start setting them to music, they weren't quite working. So I was really looking for poems that were extremely direct and punchy, but also ones where I felt like there was space for the music. And I also wanted to get a good sort of stretch of poems, so not loads of poems from one person or from one place. I wanted to try and find different texts that would take me across the northern landscape and would look at things, such as actual landscape, cities, class, coal mining, all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to create this real sort of essence of the north. So when I first started thinking about the north and what that means, I realized that it was far more complex than I probably first imagined. When I started this piece, I was very clear in my mind, I think, about what the north meant to me, and the sort of more I dug into it, the more complicated and difficult that question got to answer. And I realized there was so many different parts of northern England. If you're from Northumbria, Manchester looks very southern. If you're from Manchester, the Birmingham feels very southern. And so ideas, looking at where the north starts and where it ends. The poems about Hadrian's Wall are really interesting because, in some respects, it's a borderland between England and Scotland. But of course, England does go on beyond Hadrian's Wall. And I think when we're looking at those poems at Hadrian's Wall, you could kind of be on either side, trying to work out which side is home and which side is somewhere else. So I found those quite interesting. The Sycamore Gap poem was a really great one. It's such a sort of iconic tree, and the poem was written before the tree was cut down. I started writing this piece when that was going on, so the text to me had quite a different meaning, I think, to when it was originally written. In the poem, the tree is very arrogant and cocky, and the wall is quite stoic, and of course the wall is still standing and the tree is no longer there. So all these things sort of came together, I think, as I was researching the piece, and I think they tell a really interesting story throughout, right through to the last song, which is a Northumbrian folk song of a woman standing on the shore looking out to sea, as her husband has been press ganged into the army. Yeah, the Sycamore Gap song was really interesting. When I first found the poem, it was just so brilliant. It felt like a song, a sort of call and response. The wall would say something, the tree would say something back. But of course, current events can't help but sort of influence the way you write that. So to me, it's quite the song is quite folky. It's very lyrical, but there's also something, I guess, quite sad about it as well. The tree is so cocky throughout this poem, but we know, of course, the tree no longer stands, and I think there's an influence of that in the music, I think.